Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Today we continue our third year of the Clone Wars history series, but before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of the series. In our last episode, we looked at the beginning of the Sith Dathomiri War, a conflict Count Dooku unknowingly started after he betrayed his apprentice Ventress. In today's episode, we'll be looking at one of the strangest story arcs in the Clone Wars history series. As a matter of fact, it doesn't really have anything to do with the Clone Wars at all. Chapter 2, Masters of the Force. As the Clone Wars raged on all around the galaxy, a strange message was received on behalf of the Jedi by the Republic Navy. The message was in the form of a 2,000-year-old Jedi distress code, and it originated out in the Trilithium system in wild space. The Jedi Council decided to send Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and Ahsoka Tano to investigate the mysterious signal. They were to rendezvous with a Venator-class Star Destroyer before making a final approach to the location in case this whole distress signal thing was a separatist trap. But something strange happened when the Jedi reverted back to real space. They couldn't seem to find Captain Rex and the Star Destroyer sent to escort them, and soon their communications began to fail as well. The Jedi's shuttle shut down and the power cycled, and suddenly a gigantic floating construct appeared before them and started pulling their ship towards it as if a tractor beam had gotten hold of them. The Jedi pass out and wake up safely inside of a strange new world. Someone had landed the shuttle for them. Outside, they were greeted by a tropical paradise dotted with floating islands of rock and soil. They arrived to the ethereal realm of Mortis. Located in a place in between worlds and dimensions, Mortis was removed from the physical world and the actions of the beings that presided there. Time has very little meaning on Mortis. Days, weeks, and months could be spent there, and if one managed to return to their normal existence, no time will have passed at all in their own dimension. The planet was a very dreamlike and surreal place. As the day went on, the seasons and weather would change along with the light. While things were pleasant and sunny during the day, when night came, the vegetation would die and toxic rains would fall on the ground, turning the surface of the world uninhabitable. And as full darkness set in, lightning would shoot from the skies and bring luminous roots shooting up from the ground. The day and night cycle represented the balance between the light and the dark side. You see, Mortis was a fulcrum through which the entire galaxy's force was channeled through. This was actually all a part of George Lucas's grand plan. Apparently, he had outlined this entire episode by himself. Now, on the planet, there were three individuals known by many names: the Force Wielders, the Ones, the Celestials, the Architects. These were all powerful immortal beings, whose connection with the life energy of the galaxy allowed them to control the entire fabric of the cosmic force. It was said in legends that these three Force Wielders were originally known as Celestials, members of an ancient civilization that predated even the Old Republic. The Celestials had ultimately met their downfall at the hands of the Rakatan Infinite Empire, a cannibalistic race of aliens that enslaved much of the core region of the galaxy and used technology that was powered by the dark side of the Force. The Celestials went to great lengths to keep the Rakatans at bay. It was said that they had the power to move the stars and planets using massive machines that generated gravitational fields. This is also why the Celestials were known as the Architects by the many species that followed them. It was said that they used these gravity machines to create a barrier around the Rakan advance. Their plan ultimately did fail, and the three Celestials that did survive managed to do so by retreating to the Maw, located in the Kessel sector of space. This was a strange cluster of black holes that had been constructed by the Celestials' gravity machines. Legends say that a force nexus was located in the Maw known as the Font of Power and the Pool of Knowledge. The three Celestials supposedly drank from the Font of Power and bathed in the Pool of Knowledge and became the godlike being known as the Force Wielders. These three Force users would take up the form of the Father, the Son, and the Daughter. The Father was the oldest of the three, and he was also the most powerful and neutrally aligned in the Force. The Son was aligned to the dark side of the Force, and the Daughter was aligned to the light side of the Force. The Father's eternal job was to keep his two offspring from murdering each other. So despite their godly appearance, the gods of Mortis were like any other dysfunctional human family. The only problem was that the immortal father seemed to be slowly losing his power. He feared that if he died, then the son and daughter would once again start fighting and bring chaos and imbalance to the Force. This is why the Mortis gods sent a distress signal to the Jedi Order. They were looking for the individual known as the Chosen One. The father assumed that Anakin was the Chosen One and would be powerful enough to rein in both his son and daughter. The Mortis gods purposely separated Anakin from Obi-Wan and Ahsoka on their first night on the planet. The father introduces himself to Anakin and begins preparing a test to see if he is in fact the Chosen One. That night, as Anakin rests, he's confronted by a vision of his mother, Shmi. Anakin confides in his mother that he is torn over his past failures as a Jedi. He mentions feeling guilty about the massacre of the Sand People, along with his secret marriage with Padme. It's an interesting scene and one of the only times we see Anakin actually open up about his very dark actions, especially the murder of the Sand People. It shows us a side of Anakin that never really leaves him, even when he's Darth Vader. At the same time, Obi-Wan Kenobi that night is confronted by his former master, Qui-Gon Jinn. We're not really sure whether this is some sort of vision created by the Mortis gods or if it's actually Qui-Gon Jinn in ghost form. Apparently the cave they are staying in serves as an amplifier for all Force abilities. Qui-Gon warns Obi-Wan that Anakin must stay away from the planet because he's having trouble balancing himself within the Force. The power of this planet might tempt him and push him overboard. Ahsoka is also confronted with a vision as well. She sees a future version of herself warning her to remove her from Anakin's side, as his dark side tendencies will eventually become her own. Although all three Jedi are suspicious of their visions, all three of their visions do hold some measure of truth. The next day, Anakin undergoes his trial. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka have been captured by the son and daughter who are now in their animal forms. Anakin must choose to save one or the other, an impossible situation for him to face. So Anakin decides not to follow the rules and stops both the daughter and son in their tracks, which turns out to be the right move after all. The father decides Anakin is worthy, yet Anakin chooses not to accept the role and leaves. We're not really told why he does this, but if you really look at Anakin's future and his past, power and the pursuit of power has never really been his downfall. Instead, it was his attachment to the people he loved that turned him to the dark side and was his greatest weakness. But before he can leave, the son kidnaps Ahsoka. His plan is to convince Anakin to join him on the dark side, and together they can overcome the father and the light side. The daughter springs into action and takes Obi-Wan Kenobi to the altar of Mortis, where the dagger of Mortis is held. This was an extremely powerful weapon that was capable of killing a Force wielder. But before it can be used against the son steals it and attempts to kill the father with it. In a last act of kindness, the daughter sacrifices herself and takes the blade instead. This stuns both the father and especially the son, who despite his alignment through the Force still loves his sister. The Force is now in chaos and the father tells the Jedi to leave. They must not let the sun escape the planet on their ship. The father has to destroy the sun or else the dark side will overwhelm the light side and the Sith will gain control of the galaxy. Ultimately, the father must confront the son in the well of the dark side deep within Mortis. Anakin is there too, and he once again has a vision. This time, he sees his future as Darth Vader. Anakin refuses to witness these images, and he refuses to believe that they are true. The son, however, promises to prevent these terrible things from happening, and Anakin agrees to go along with him, just like how he will one day follow Palpatine in the hopes of preventing tragedy. The father finally arrives and is left with no other choice but to stab himself with the dagger of Mortis. The son is shaken by the actions of the father and makes peace with his father before he passes. In this moment of weakness, Anakin runs the son through with a lightsaber, and together, the two last gods of Mortis die. The Jedi awake back on their ship only seconds have passed in the real world. Anakin is left with the chilling knowledge of what he will one day become. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka also have their visions of this darkening future. The Mortis gods are gone, and if you believe the legends, it's said that their presence kept an even more ancient evil at bay. But since it's legends, we'll probably be fine. I hope. So there you have it, guys. That's a very strange and bizarre story of the gods of Mortis. As you can see, Lucas really wanted to play around with these various elements of the Force. I guess he was getting bored of all of the space opera kind of stuff. In our next episode, we're going to be looking at the legendary prison known as the Citadel. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on that episode. Also, guys, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.